Hi, everyone. Good morning, and it's great to see everybody here. So I'm going to speak to you today about something a little bit outside the ordinary. It's building business models in the circular economy. Before I start, I really like this quote by Caitlin Smith. Favorite thing about being an entrepreneur is learning how to hack things that seem impossible. That's kind of what I did when I set out to create a new business model within something fairly new. Does anyone know what the circular economy is or heard of it? Put your hands up very quickly. So fairly decent amount of you. I think the Netherlands as well is pretty much pioneer of this business model, actually. So just to give you a brief explanation of this industry, it's just emerging at the moment globally, and it's mainly been driven by governments, corporations. What it is basically the traditional business models of companies that you know of that have been the last 30, 40 years have been taken on a linear approach. So this basically means that they get resources, metals, whatever, they produce something, they create a product, they sell it, and then they dispose of the waste. There's been no aspect or thought process with respect to the sustainability. And as we move on over time, clearly resources are going to run out. So big corporations are getting a bit worried about how they're going to create their products and source new products going forwards. So the circular economy has evolved. And that basically entails bringing in that waste or excess materials back into the manufacturing and the production, whether it's redesigning, remanufacturing, recycling, upcycling goods into their own supply chain in different ways. And the idea behind it, obviously, is to create revenue streams from that. So we've got people like Philips that do lighting. They're actually moving away from selling light bulbs and actually selling light and maintaining the light fixtures in commercial outlets. PwC in London has an outstanding building where basically their energy is sourced by cooking oil. So these are the type of innovations that are out there that people are testing out to see if it's more profitable going forwards. So this industry is a bit of a niche. There's not much data out there at the moment, but McKinsey and PwC have been doing studies on this, and they claim it's a £1 trillion industry, with marketplaces and the circular economy being worth around the 350, 400 billion mark. This is really interesting. When new business models occur and new economies occur, it's really difficult to create market capitalization, especially when you're going to look for funding. So I'm hopefully going to give you a few insights of how we've built our business and how you can probably implement that if you're thinking of incorporating into circular economy models or just generally new business models going forwards. So when I first set this up, as I said, there was no data out there. No one used the word reuse. No one used the word circular economy. There was no competition out there to basically look at what was out there and compare it and see if I could do a better job of it. And it required a new way of thinking and speaking to many different people to see if the product was interesting to them and if we could make money out of it. It usually requires creating a new service or a product in the market. And as we know, Airbnb and Uber are great examples of pioneering. They're more sharing economy, but they take on the same kind of new business models of changing behaviors and doing something a bit out there and new. It tends to be seen as higher risk as well because you can't foresee the future with respect to projections, financials, if it works or not. So for example, you've got dating apps. You can always create another dating app because you know there's a model out there and they make money. Whereas new business models tend to be leading the way. So you have to have a bit of confidence that it might work, it might not. So it tends to be higher risk. And obviously it disrupts a lot of different areas. So we know from Airbnb and Uber there's been legislation and policy issues around it. It tends to be focused in grey areas where you're not sure where you kind of fit in. A little bit of background on me. I used to work in an investment bank, and we moved offices across the road, and the bank disposed of all the furniture, their computers, their carpet tiles, and they gave us brand new stock. When I said to them, why didn't you give that to charities and small businesses, they didn't know who to send it to, they didn't know the outlets, they didn't know any supply chains, they had to move it quick. And I just thought, why has nobody digitalized waste in the way everything else is being digitalized? And I quite like this slide because it kind of reflects on evolution and the way we've been thinking about things. And we kind of messed up in the process and not really done the simple things in life. So that's how I really created Globechain. So We basically picked 3 areas because this is a new business model. So we wanted to be the major brokerage platform or marketplace for reusing items globally. Because there was no data in there, we decided we had to create the data. So create the niche for reuse and collect data on social, economic, and environmental impacts of the giving. So when corporates are giving away items, they save money, and the taking member gets the data on how it has impacted the economy. So really when you're doing a business model, really kind of focus on what you want to create in the market and where there's a gap in the market. So for us, it was about data on reuse and recycling. It wasn't very good, and we didn't know the market cap, and we didn't know where items were going. So we had to start from scratch and basically build the foundations ourselves. So on the new business model side, when you have an idea, the best thing to do is structure it correctly, get your IP, get your trademarks in place, because people are going to start following you as soon as they realize that things are moving and things are doing well. So it's all about testing it, structuring, and actually taking a risk, and you have to kind of lead the way. What I realized is nobody could help us at the beginning. When I was asking for knowledge, information, or how to create it, nobody really knew. So in the end, I had to kind of take control and decide that we had to kind of pioneer that and push that forwards. Launch fast is the next thing. So when you launch, I did a really minimal product. I didn't care what it looked like. I just basically picked up the phone to one of the largest retailers in the UK, and I said, this is my idea. What do you think? And interestingly, they said, let's have a go. And I spoke to them and said, what is it you're disposing of? And they were like, fixtures and fittings. So we tested for a whole year on a very, very basic system that cost only £800, how they uploaded things, how people took it, and we created a network manually of charities and small business to take the items. So launch quick, because somebody's going to get in there before you. And let the idea evolve. A lot of people, when they approached us, they were like, do this to your platform, change your logo, design it, add a case study. We didn't do any of that. We kept it very, very simple and basic. And the reason being is that make the idea evolve as the clients and customers are coming on board. So listen to the people and ask them what they want. And if so many people want it, then you start building it into the platform. It's the only way it would grow. It'll grow steady and slow, but you know that there's a solid model behind it, and you know that there's a demand for what you're building as well. I kept it very simple, and we didn't add any extras, so nothing fancy. It was very, very raw. And also technology offerings. One of the things that really struck me when we were starting as a startup, because this is self-funded, it was bootstrapped because we couldn't get funding, because nobody understood the model, was everyone was saying, get an app. And we work with predominantly B2B, so it's corporates. If you actually talk to a corporate or a business, they actually want API integration, not apps. So for me, to spend £40,000 on an app was pointless at the beginning, because they wanted API integration, and that was a lot cheaper for us to do. So really start thinking and understanding the software of the clients and build it to fit into them. Because if you're doing something that's pioneering, there's traditional business models based on software and systems that are probably 30 years old. So you need to basically incorporate in them, and they have to catch up with you, not the other way around. Understanding the users was a big part of the new business model evolving, if you like. We did over 60 stores the first year and tested the user experience with companies. So we have 3 different types of members, if you like, on the site. We have businesses, we have charities, we have SMEs, and we have individuals. Each type of member requires almost a different type of user experience on the system. So if you look at kind of Airbnb and Uber on their web platforms, or even on their apps, you'll notice that it's very consumer-driven so if you want a taxi, it's very easy for you to click and get a taxi. Whereas if you want to be a taxi driver, you might have to click through, say, 5 times before you know where to register as a taxi. So be really aware, especially with marketplaces, which user experience and where you need to focus your demand and supply. And don't be afraid to switch your system over to gain that momentum on different sides as well. And that's really important in the early stages before you get some traction. Testing and feedback was a really big thing for us. And As we grew, we started seeing people doing the same thing, which was a good sign. But also, it's about they were failing and we weren't. So it was like, what were we doing differently to them? And it was because they were building it based on the traditional aspects of selling products like an eBay, whereas we were trying something new. And we were getting the imagination of the companies and the charities and listening to the demand and what people wanted. So testing was really crucial, and we actually did it for free for a whole year with a couple of different types of clients in retail, construction, and office commercial, to get a real understanding of what the challenges were and the solutions. And we spoke to them. There's a bit of honesty. As a startup, you can actually go in and say, listen, I don't know if this is going to work, but just can you put some trust in me and let's test it? And most people don't mind if something goes wrong. Like, you know, we've had ups and downs the first year and things not being collected, but most corporates have been really patient, and I think that's really crucial to gaining their trust longer term, because now we've basically had client retention over the last 4 years of all these customers because they feel like they've built it with us going forwards and they've seen it grow and evolve. And that comes down to kind of behavior change. New business models always require different behavior changes. So it takes a while before people get on board. So you need to be patient. So with a new business, don't expect an overnight success. You're looking at probably the 2 to 3 year mark before you see kind of movement on either a site or a product going forwards. One interesting thing, and probably this is focused more on the private equity and the venture capitalists, is they always want to see traction and growth at an early stage. On a new business model, I found that that doesn't happen because it takes a while, and if you're not funded, it takes a long time with the marketing and the PR. What we found is the quality of the type of members that we had initially on stage were actually much more powerful than the quantity of them. So our items were going within 24 hours on the sites. As soon as an alert went out, 7 o'clock in the morning till 11, it was all reserved. And we didn't have many members, and that was really because we had the right type of members initially at the beginning. As we grew, the traction started coming, and we've got 10,000 members in the UK now on the back of that. So don't feel under pressure to get multiple members, because I've seen food apps out there that, you know, the next fashion is having a food app and a marketplace to pass food on. A lot of them don't make revenue. They have 100,000 members, but their transaction levels are low. So just be aware of kind of what units you're measuring as well. Customer service is really important at the beginning because it's all about trust, retention, and value. What value can you offer companies out there? How can you help them change to become more circular? Circular economy is a very difficult economy to justify from a revenue perspective for big companies and for products and services as well. So it's about how find a niche to add value to them and build your model around that, because you'll find that most businesses will want the same thing and want the same solutions for their challenges. Differentiate yourself. So our differentiation was the data, because there's no data in the industry. There are waste companies, but that's waste data. Our data is about social impact and sustainability, which is not really in the marketplace. So we basically focused on that, and that was a key differentiator really in getting a client on board. And create relationships. It's really about going in every quarter with them, talking them through the system, seeing how they're using it, to keep an eye on the behavior of how people are using the system as well. And use it yourself as a customer, because you'll find there's things going on that don't work. So it's really important to get like really on the ground when you're doing this. And basically, because of all that, all our corporate clients that have come on board and people registering have become through referrals. We make no cold calls to get clients. So it just shows you how the power of something new and innovative can really kind of get the trust behind big companies. One thing is create what you measure. New businesses, new models, you're not going to have the information out there to propel yourself, so you need to create it. So there were kind of 3 areas, predominantly on the data side, like I just mentioned. Industry drivers, so look at kind of government, policy, what they're talking about, how they're changing the economy, what are they talking about? It's the UN climate change, circular economy, sharing economy, sustainability, all these keywords, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, all these are drivers to create the data you want. And also listen to your clients. What kind of drivers are driving them to move that way as well? Understand it and create your product or service around them. Spend little. As I said, £800 for our first website, and it worked. I don't know how people came on board, because it was shocking. The design was awful, but the system worked, and I think that's what's quite important about it, is they believed in it enough, and they believed in us as a team, that we could do something and change the way they operate in the operational side. And profitability. So one interesting thing, as I said to you, we didn't get funding at the beginning, and it was because they didn't understand the projections and the cash flow, because they couldn't compare it with anything in the market. So we now are sustainable, we make a profit. So try and get as profitable as you can, pretty much from day one. So have an idea in 6 months to a year time how you're going to be making money. That's really crucial, because in the second year we broke even, and the third year we started making profit. And now investors are looking at it, but before they couldn't. So that's one major issue with new business models, is that if you've got nothing to compare yourself in the market with, you're going to really struggle for investors to take it on board, because they're going to class it as higher risk. Invest it back in and repeat it. So after first year we did it for free, second year we started charging, and third year we got the model pretty much sorted. So it's about testing, 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 seeing what the market will pay for it, what they see as valuable, and then push it out there with confidence. And pretty much we're kind of leading the way in that. So we didn't compare it with skips or dumpsters. We kind of created our own revenue streams, and we basically charge the corporates for a listing or an annual membership fee, and we try and get them to break even on one skip, one dumpster a year on that, so they're saving money, so it's a very clear commercial side to it. And finally, don't quit. New business models takes a lot longer. So I always say running a business and being an entrepreneur is 80% mental stamina, and it's a mental marathon, so you don't have a nervous breakdown. 10% craziness and 10% business. If you can get that and get to your 2-3 year period, you've done pretty well. So I hope that's been really useful for you, just to give you an insight in how to create something new. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.